ladies and gents, welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome aboard the Wellington Mark X. Now the Wellington 10 is the last of the 4 Wellingtons available in the British line as bombers, and without a doubt in my mind it's the worst. This thing is battle rating 5. It's almost identical to the previous 3 Wellington bombers, except this one has an extra 2 7.62mm machine guns in the rear defensive position in the tail, and it's just a horrible aircraft. Well, actually, I'm probably not being fair on it, if I'm being honest with myself. I actually don't mind the previous 3 bombers. The problem with the Wellington is it's severely over-tiered. At battle rating 5, this thing has the defensive capability of pretty much the Era 2 Wellington. It's almost the identical plane with the identical bomb load, just slightly better armed. However, this thing has to fight P-51s, Bearcats, LA-9s, the high-end Yak-9 UTs. It has to fight the Ki-84s if it happens to get on a Japanese map. It has to fight pretty much every single one of the German high-end prop fighters, including things like the B6R3. So, much like the other Wellingtons, its damage model, it cannot take a hit. It has very limited ability to defend itself. So how do you fly this thing in combat? Well, this is how I do it. Now, I have heard pilots say that maps are largely irrelevant because you fly above them, you're in an aircraft. The map only really comes into play when you've made a critical mistake and you crash into the ground. This is the case for most fighters, but when you are trying to work things like the Wellington 10, it's not. To get into position in this aircraft, I generally try and fly nap of the earth. Now, what that means is I'm flying below terrain features to minimise detection. Now, you do this in 2 ways. First thing you'll notice is I'm only at about 200 feet, and I fly down to 70 feet as I go into areas where I know that hostile aircraft will not be far away. The spotting mechanics in-game work in the vertical based on detection altitudes above, so flying below 1,000 feet, an aircraft to spot me beneath them would need to be at around or under 10,000 feet for me to become visible. Any higher than that, and I am cloaked due to my proximity to the ground. The second thing I do is flying below the terrain features. Now you can see I'm on Krimsk at the moment. I'm flying around the southwest section of the map, where the ocean meets the shoreline, where there's a large number of hills that crest the coast. Now these hills to my right hand side, just on the other side of it is the small city that is a very popular spot for bombers and ground attackers to move in and fight it out, attacking ground forces. Putting these hills in between prevents these aircraft, which are flying low enough to be able to detect me as I'm moving down the coastline, from being able to spot me. Any enemy fighters climbing for altitude attempting to engage our fighters in dogfights are at too high an altitude to be able to spot me in this situation, even if they are directly above me. And this allows me to slip something as undefended and easy to kill as a Wellington all the way around the enemy section of the map and begin working over their ground forces. And that's really why I'm showing this first video. Most of my videos are about how to engage in combat, how to get yourself into an optimal position in order to make a kill. That's not what this video is about. This is how to avoid combat in aircraft that you're really required to do so. And as you can see, it's quite effective. Enemy fighters are just about to begin engaging Allied fighters in the altitude of in excess of 15,000 feet. Ground attackers are just about to hit targets in the town just over the other side of these hills, and meanwhile I'm just leisurely flying down the coastline enjoying the sunset. I'm looking forward to seeing these sort of maps on the new computer. First parts for that have arrived, by the way. Now at this point we're about halfway down the coastline and I have to prepare myself to get up over the cliffs. Now the energy retention of the Wellington is not exactly great. Climbing up over the top of these hills will almost put me in a stall situation. It is that bad, especially with a full bomb load on. But I need to avoid this destroyer fleet that is just coming into visual range now. These things can start engaging me pretty much from the range they're at now. At 9 kilometers they can get accurate fire on, and a single AAA hit from one of those things will wipe this plane out, and there's 3 of them. So just to the right you can see a crevice in the hills directly towards where the base icon is. I'm going to fly up through that because I do not want to climb to too high an altitude, just in case there are any enemy bombers that have gone wide trying to avoid combat, much the same way that I am. I don't want them to light me up this earlier on, because there will be at least one straggler fighter that will be willing to come over here for a free kill. I'll start lifting the nose to climb through the crevice, keeping the altitude as close to the treetops as I possibly can. Also trying to keep my angle of climb as low as possible. I need to keep as much energy as I can so I can actually make it over the top of that second hill. Nothing would be more embarrassing than getting this far down the map and then smacking it into the side of a mountain, just kilometres from my target. Just continuing the fly through. Now, talking about the defence on the Wellingtons, or its ability to absorb damage, this plane did have a rather unique structure. Known as a geodetic airframe, the entire airframe of the aircraft is basically constructed out of duraludium diamonds that are all linked the entire way through the structure of the aircraft, and then coated with a canvas in order to create a sealant. This meant that shells would regularly penetrate through the aircraft. The occupants of the aircraft had very little defence, but the structure of the aircraft was incredibly hard to break, as taking one section out of it would not destroy the entire airframe. There was no spine of the aircraft, so to speak, that you could eliminate. To take out the entire airframe would require enough damage to actually break the entire section of links in that particular portion of the aircraft. At the moment, this durability that the Wellington had is not reflected in game. The battle rating of 5 would probably be warranted if it was, but at the moment, a single 30mm hit pretty much anywhere on the aircraft, or even a 20, will usually kill the plane. So, flying the nap of the Earth has been successful, just bombing out this AAA and getting ready to make my first passes on the base. Now, the second I start dropping bombs on this target, the enemy team is going to be notified that I'm doing it, and they are going to know that I'm here. However, by this time it's already too late. The enemy forces are all 20 kilometres away. By the time they start heading in this direction, I'm going to be out of the area. Even if they do head in this direction, interceptors will be following them, so I'm basically safe from this point to do whatever I want to the ground targets in this area. First thing I do is drop bombs on the area bombing target, and then begin using the defensive gunners on the aircraft to strafe out soft targets in the surrounding regions. And that was pretty much the end of the match for me. I spend the rest of my time grinding RP and credits and ripping the enemy's ticket counter to pieces as my air forces go about defending themselves against the Russian fighters. Just use the forward gunners to bin first passes as they pass over the top, then rotate around. As the target comes back into view, use the rear gunners to finish the job. And this is all I do for the next 10 minutes, so let's skip that and go through to the results. So, results for the match. Second place in a Wellington 10, not something you see every day. 7 soft ground targets and a base target, which currently doesn't show up on the list. Ground Strike X3, anti-mech and a 1500 Silver Lion battle trophy. 28,428 Silver Lions and 2,776 research points. Now, these rewards are awfully low in comparison to what you can get in other aircraft. There are better things to attack ground targets with, but if you're really interested in flying the Wellington Mark 10, that is an effective way to do it. It doesn't get you a whole lot of reward, and that's the second problem with this plane, especially for me as I'm trying to spade it at the moment. The reward level it earns is incredibly low, which makes it very hard and requires a lot of missions to get this thing fully upgraded. But if you're having trouble getting the Wellington, or really any other bomber, to your target, try Nap of the Earth. Get it in below terrain cover at below 1,000 feet and see whether or not you can sneak the whole way across the map to your enemy's targets and eliminate them. Now, our next battle is the Spitfire XVIIIe, and this is a Spitfire that I actually forgot that I had. Now, the last couple of videos I've shown a lot of bad team gameplay, but how do you identify when you've got yourself a good team? Good team gameplay is much harder to recognise, as it tends not to stand out. A lot of pilots will write off matches where they've had incredibly good teams as being bad personal matches, as it's much, much harder to get into a first place or in a high position on the team when your whole team is doing the right thing all at once. The competition for first place is a lot more intense, and that's what this battle was. This was a pretty good battle for a almost completely stock Mark 18, but the whole team was incredibly good. Everybody was exactly where they needed to be in order to engage targets effectively in the individual furballs that are forming up across the map. And the difference between first place and fifth place was down to pretty much a single cannon burst. So, first targets coming in, Focke-Wulf 190s. Now this is Battle of Berlin, Allied and Russian forces versus the Germans. I've climbed my way out to just under 12,000 feet and I'm holding area at the moment. I'm just waiting for a close target to engage. Just keeping my head on a swivel. 109 going in below. Now that's a K4, incredibly dangerous aircraft. It's going to be my first target that I engage. It's got energy on me at the moment. It's just looped around the back. Take it into a vertical. Continue to roll through. Reinitiate the dive. He pulls up as I'm going down and we pass one another again. And now we're in a fight for position. Just tracking the target as I go through a second vertical maneuver. Aileron rolling to try and time my drop to pull in on his tail. Takes it back in the vertical again. He tries to roll the plane back down. Try a burst. Miss. Snap it around and reinitiate the dive. But I've got him now. I'm up in behind him. He is making it awfully hard to get guns on target. And these were not bad pilots on the German side. Pre-place the guns. Take the pilot out of the cockpit. First kill. And all I did there, rather than trying to follow him through the manoeuvre, I saw that he was going to come back down and I pre-placed my gun so that he would cross my arc of fire as he went through his manoeuvre into a dive. If I had missed, he actually would have had a chance to fall back in on my tail. So it's a high risk, high reward way of positioning yourself. So with the 109 cleared out of the area, I'm beginning my sweep for a new fighter. Nothing is presenting itself straight away. We actually didn't drop any altitude at all in that fight. We're still sitting at just sub 12,000 feet. Two 190s on high altitude, one at medium altitude, but it's 15 k's out, so there's nothing immediately close that's catching my attention. That said, I am keeping a close look on the 190 that's approaching me from behind. It is one of the higher altitude aircraft, but it is only 6 kilometres out and does appear to be closing in. The second one that was wide at 15 k's has approached down to 7 as well and seems to be closing fast. And another target has appeared as well. All 190s, likely D13s at this battle rating. Just lifting the nose to burst a small amount of extra altitude up. I've got time to regain my airspeed, but I just want to keep it high so I'm ready and in a position to be able to engage these guys on an equal level. The JG 190 is 3 kilometres off my right wing and engaging in LA9. He looks like he may have the drop on the LA9, although it has just pulled vertical. Closing distance fast. As dip the nose down, I want to go straight underneath him. Take it straight into a loop, fall over behind. And he's out on his own now, so I'm going to fall into pursuit on him. He's going to be my next target. Just checking around, making sure there's nothing else in the area that can assist him. I don't want to get baited into a trap here. Sitting at 15,000 feet now, equal level. And just looking around the battlefield, you can see how everyone's broken into pretty much one-on-one fights. Now, a third target has shown up down to the right, however, so that's become a 3-on-2. The JG 190 is pulling out of range. I'm not going to waste my time trying to pursue. I'll put this thing into a dive and move down and see if I can assist. He'll come back for us eventually. Just checking the target below me. I'm in a prime dive position at the moment. We'll see if we can thin these odds out a little. 90-degree dive, pull the throttles right back so I don't overspeed. I am going to have to pull out of this just above the target so I don't overspeed and break the plane. And there we are. It was actually a 4-on-3, An extra plane has shown up on the enemy team, but an extra one of ours had lit out of the group as well. Wait, there's another one. 5 on 3. Okay. I'll clear this guy out. I'm at same altitude and I've got the highest energy advantage on him. Closing in rapidly. Short burst, miss. The lead wasn't quite good enough. Snap it over 90 degrees, begin an elevation turn. Even after the turn, I'm still doing 550 kilometers an hour, so I've still got vastly more energy than this 190 D13, so closing in rapidly on him again. First shots go in. Nice solid hit, nothing critical however. Trying to be sparing with my ammo here, I don't want to waste it unless I absolutely have to. He takes it right down to the deck and begins a weaving pattern. Now this is actually really good. He's anticipating where my shots are going to be and changing direction randomly and rapidly, making it very hard to track. It is allowing me to catch up nice and close, but what it's actually also done is allowed me to pull well inside my gun convergence. I do get the kill, but I take a massive hit from behind. Pull the Spitfire into a loop. It's the JGR 190. He turned around to pursue me. Bearcat takes him out. And that's just leveled the fight in this area. Unfortunately, at this point I have to RTB. The engine has taken critical damage and is dying rapidly, so I need to get this thing back to the runway for a repair. I do make it back and manage to land, but by the time I get there, the battle is over. So let's go check out the results. And this is what the results screen for a very good team looks like. 2 kills of equal or higher battle rating, and it was only enough to get 6th place. Only one player on the team didn't get stuck in. No rewards, but 49,870 silver lions and 5,810 RP on a double. These are the kind of rewards you expect out of a fairly good match, the kind of match that would traditionally get you a first place victory. But when the entire team is flying a first place level match, you just can't. Not everybody can be in first place at the same time, and it is worth looking at if you're one of those players that, like me, I've had this in the past, looks at my battle results, I'm either getting bad teams or crap matches. Take a close look at those crap matches. You may find it wasn't so much that this was actually a bad match, it's just that everybody on your team was flying so well that the competition for first place was nightmarish. Till next time folks, fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.